You are listening to the 4-Phase Cycle Podcast with your hosts, Megan and Alex of ZESTY Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you have come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, we use the 4 phases of the feminine cycle in combination with functional lab work to transform the lives of the women we work with. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own doctor before making changes. Ready to take control of your health? Let's get started.
Hi there, this is Alex here with you. We are all about our cycle stuff that we have been talking about in the previous Podclasses, and I am here today to talk with you about the action items for the rise phase. Okay, so we have been cruising along. We got an overview. We talked about what's happening inside the body in each of the 4 phases, and just a reminder, that's the release phase, followed by the rise phase, and then the plateau phase, and then the pause. So we are right in the rise phase, which, as I've said before, is still my favorite one. So with the rise phase, this is going to be your most actionable time, and when you are going to feel like you have the most energy. Everything in your body is primed for kind of outward experiences and action and movement, and all of that is just all of the other times that you spend. For example, if you listen to the previous podcast and we were talking about the release phase, that is the time for rest. So when you have taken the time, that's when you can really get going out of the gate really quickly with everything that you plan to do. And here's the thing, when you do things in this way, you will ultimately end up being a lot more efficient with your energy, and you're going to feel like you just don't have as much overwhelm in your life, okay? And so that is the benefit. There's also, I've talked about this before as well, in that when you go by the phases, that means you never have to do something all the time for the most part. It's just when that right time comes around, that's when you do something, and then when that time passes, you stop. And so you're never feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm just missing or dropping the ball on half the stuff that I expect myself to do. Okay, so rise is all about the action. And so let's get going. We're going to talk about food goals for this phase, movement goals, the ritual that we're going to have you do, and then some mental work and journaling that we're going to cover. All right? Okay, so let's get started. The food for the rise phase, this is by far the time when you're going to be the most successful with whatever diet or nutrient goals that you have. Okay, so if you have ever said to yourself, oh, I always mess up diets, or I never stick with diets, it's likely a big portion of it is that you are starting at a poor time for your body. So a lot of times we follow a calendar like, oh, hey, it's almost summer, I should get into my bikini body shape and eat like that. But the thing is, it is a better way to do it if you wait for the right time when your body is primed for it. So regardless of what your food goals are, the rise time is the time when you're going to be the most effective at starting something, and you'll have a lot of motivation and energy to make it happen. And so when someone is first starting working with us out of our ladies, this is usually the time when we have them do the elimination diet portion, or the elimination portion of the elimination diet, by this phase taking out those foods and then reintroducing during the plateau and pause phases, because, for example, for the pause phase, that's when you're most likely to crave things and kind of quote unquote mess up. It's not a very good time to be necessarily limiting a whole variety of things and making yourself feel like you are depriving yourself. That's not a great time. The rise, however, because you are so primed for all of this stuff physiologically, what happens is that your body is that much happier to say, like, okay, I'm going to get motivated by this. I'm going to do what's right. And you're going to do it for the right reasons instead of when you do it for the pause, it's mostly just because you feel bad about yourself and you're trying to do something to make it better. Unfortunately, when you feel bad about yourself, that's not an empowering place to be coming from, and that's why people ultimately will end up not sticking with the things that they resolve to do, because if your belief in yourself is that you are going to fail, well, then it's going to be really hard for you to not meet that expectation for yourself. Okay, so that's why with the elimination diet, we do it that way. If you're not following an elimination diet, that's totally fine. Whatever your food goals are, the rise phase is when you will feel most motivated, most powerful to start that diet, cut out that sugar, eat more veggies, go and make a trip to the store to get different kinds of foods and veggies that you may not have tried before in an effort to do nutrient density and all of that really important stuff. And so with food goals, this is your time to make the most impact. So I always think of the rise phase as kind of like the starting phase. So whatever you want to increase in your life, whatever you thought about during the release phase, whatever you journal on, whatever you discovered about yourself, the rise phase is when you get going on it and you put in the effort up front to kind of get started. Think about it like this. If you have a balloon that you're blowing up, the part of that whole blowing up the balloon process that is the hardest is when you first get started, right? You have to put a lot of effort into getting a little bit of air in, and then all of a sudden, once it reaches a certain size, it just blows up really quickly, right? It's not as much work after that. That's basically when you're starting something new, it's like that first little phase of blowing up the balloon where you have to work really hard, but you don't necessarily see the effort going on the inside. And then once you reach a tipping point, all of a sudden it gets a lot easier. And a lot of times that kind of metaphor translates very easily to how we experience positive changes in our life. So, in the beginning, it's hard, but we're hopefully motivated. So you want to pick that time where the hardest work that you're going to do is when you have the most energy and motivation to put into it. Once you're on a roll and everything starts adding up, it gets easier and easier and easier. And then you want to set up that time for the time where you're primed to maintain. It's the time to integrate. It's the time to make real life changes. It's the time to go back and tweak and modify. Okay, so that is how everything will flow. But make sure that you're lining up all of the changes that you want to bring into your life, everything you establish in the release phase. This is the time to do it. All right, so that's food. Let's go on to movement. Once again, this rise phase is going to be when you have the most amount of energy and reserve, and your endocrine system, while our endocrine, I hate saying it's fragile because it makes it sound like we're likely to mess it up by like doing just a little something funny. But it is a system that its job is to respond to things going on in your environment. And so it is sensitive to those things because it is meant to be sensitive. It is in real time looking at your environment, taking in feedback, and then your brain is making decisions about what to do then or not. For example, in the time of a famine, probably not the best time to have a baby. When you're being chased by a tiger, definitely not the best time to start ovulating, right? So all of these things end up having real consequences. And so for this rise phase, that's when our body is primed to have the most reserve. Even if it's sensitive, it still has a lot of things that it has done in the background during that release phase to reprime the circuit, so to speak. So you're basically just, everything has gotten ready for you, and then now is the time to expend that energy. So when it comes to our movement goals for this is the time when, no matter what your goals are, you're going to push those goals and kind of try to push past your limits wherever you are, because that will, A, make you successful, and 2, cause the least amount of side effect damage. Because we all know, so if you're exercising really hard, that's a stressor on the body. In some ways, that's a really great stressor. We want to exercise our cardiovascular system. We want our lymphatics to be moved. We want to sweat our toxins out through our skin. We want to get blood flow through our lungs. We want to build our muscles. We want to rebuild our bones. All of that is all true. But it is a certain amount of damage and stress on the body. And right now in this rise phase, that damage, the body can take that and positively help you grow. So it will take that input that you give it, and it will do what it needs to create in the future. Okay, so that is rebuilding muscles, making your bones more stronger and less likely to break with small incidents, all of these things. And so this, for your time, this kind of eustress, so good stress, can be really, really great, because that is something that your body is going to respond to positively. And so if you are pushing for a PR in CrossFit, or you're training for something, this is the time to do the kind of the bigger work and the hardest part of your training, and take it up a level. So if that's where you are, you just want to plan your workouts or plan your training so that it falls in this category. Now, you still want to be careful about overtraining. You want to make sure that you're not setting yourself up for injury, but in general, this is going to be the time where it's safest to do that. If you are just starting out with your exercise journey, it's not that you have to go crazy on your exercise now because you feel the need to. It's more just that as you develop and you take the thing, maybe you started walking last week and that was your gentle exercise. Maybe this week is the time to push yourself a little bit. So, jogging every other block, or doing some weightlifting a couple days a week. So wherever it is, you want to act according to that. Once again, this is not a focus on me telling you exactly what you need to be doing. The focus is you take what you have come up with that would most nurture your body and your soul, and you find the things that you want to do anyways within the context of this cycle and within the context of what your body is already going to be primed for. And so you want to take into account, just because I said now's the time to exercise heavily and push yourself, now is not the time to send yourself to the hospital because you passed out from overexertion or the heat or something. Just make sure that you are listening to the feedback of your body within everything that we're doing. But as far as movement things that I really like, high intensity interval training, I really like, because it can be a 15-minute workout. It's really hard. You'll get a sweat on, all that stuff. I really like sprints. Not a lot, but a couple times a week during this time, because again, it's one of those things that increases your capacity for exercise while still being one of the most efficient things. I like slow, heavy lifting, although during this rise phase, I tend to do a little bit more dynamic things. I will mix up heavier weights and lower reps with dynamic movement like squat jumps or burpees or anything like that. And so that's my personal thing. You certainly don't have to do that. You can if you just do yoga, the movement Exercise can just be to push yourself on the poses, maybe push yourself to try something you haven't tried before. Maybe you take the extra energy to go out and get a little bit of coaching. Whatever it is for you, you just want to say, okay, I'm doing this because I have a goal. I realized during the release phase I need, X exercise because I chose it for myself, and I think that's the best thing for me, the best match for me. And then you build on that depending on what your body is telling you. All right, so that's the movement, and I think it's really fun because I feel like once you've rested up from the release phase, this is when you see the gains, where all of a sudden you start pushing yourself and you realize how much good that rest did you. And a lot of times people are like, whoa, this would have taken me a month to get to these weights or this time, but instead it took me a week because I just was well rested, well nourished, and I had the mental fortitude to do it. So it ends up being super, super, super fun. Okay, so ritual for this phase. The ritual is going to be super fun. So as a society, we have historically not appreciated the feminine quite as much. I feel like I'm saying the most obvious statement in the entire world. What we want to do, Megan and I, what we believe in is not that we are trying to overthrow patriarchy with more feminine. It's more that we want to recognize in each of us and each of our, each person, the fact that there is a feminine and a masculine present there. And what has happened is that in trying to participate in the male-dominated world, we have begun to be really good at bringing up the masculine parts of ourselves. Even if we are kind of girly girls or not, a lot of times the way we do things is very reflective of male physiology and male culture. And so our work weeks and the way we learned about the human body and the way we talk about exercise and weight loss and all of those things are still very much geared to the masculine. And so in order to balance this out, we have to respectfully bring up the feminine within ourselves. And less so, we'll talk about sex actually later, but one of the ways to do this is to allow yourself times where you specifically honor your feminine, and it's not necessarily just sexual things that will work in this way. What it is that you are bringing up for yourself the ability to give and receive love or receive good in your life. Traditionally masculine is seen as action outward giving, and the feminine is receiving, transforming, and nourishing. And so it brings up this idea of, as we develop the feminine, it asks us to think about our ability to receive. How good are you at receiving a compliment? How good are you at offloading a task when someone offers to do it for you? Or do you just say, no, I got it, I can do it? How good are you at nurturing yourself when you're tired, when you're hungry, when you are stressed? Or do you respond to those cues from yourself, or do you simply ignore it and move on and push yourself and hustle and whatever other word that people say? And so this whole idea is going to be highlighted in the ritual. So during this rise, as we feel the hormones rising and as we feel our body changing in response to that, and we benefit from all those great things like the energy and the motivation and the happiness and the ability to just get things done, we want to take that and honor it as the feminine superpower that it actually is, because all of these things are necessary in the world, whether or not we talk about the importance of femininity and what the feminine in each human brings to the table or not. Okay, so this ritual is going to be it's like a feminine bath. What's the word I'm looking for? You're honoring yourself. So almost like as if you were being celebrated, but it's just you. So you're going to take a bath, and whatever femininity means for you, you're going to find ways to represent that it's like a ritual bath. But I want you to set up the environment. So whether the feminine represented in you is best depicted by pink flowers and rose petals in your water, and rose essential oil and lavender, and you have bubble bath, and you're going to have some champagne. And if it's super girly, great. If your entire, if you want to light black candles and dye the water black and do whatever, and that represents your femininity to you, and that ability to receive and nurture and transform and regrow and rebuild and rebirth, whatever that is for you, you will represent it physically. And so I want you to make this ritualized. I want you to do it as if you're giving reverence to your own feminine, as if it was a statue or a goddess in front of you, okay? And as you do this, it's really, really great to allow yourself, as you interact with this environment and make conscious decisions, like I am including this in my bath, I am including this, and this is why. And as you begin to pick the items and incorporate them and live in that environment as you do this for, even if it's an hour or 3 hours or whatever it is, as you do that, you get a clear understanding of your relationship with this part of you, and it also gives you a clear relationship with what you've chosen to surround yourself with. And when I started doing this, what it brought up for me was that there was a lot of things that I did to nurture other people, but that I would not do to nurture myself. And so I made it a habit to start. From this exercise, I started making it a habit of buying myself a cheap flower bouquet every single week. So, or it didn't even have to be cheap. I just happened to like daisies and stuff, so it always is cheap. But my point is that it didn't cost me an arm and a leg to do this. It was like $3.99. I would get a fresh bouquet. I would buy it saying, I'm buying this for myself because I love myself. And I would get it, and it's something I did, and I would cut the stems and be appreciative that I could have this, and I would put it out where I always sit and do my work. And to me, it was a very, very small, it didn't take a lot of time, it didn't take a lot of money, but for me that represented nourishing myself. Your thing might be something completely different and will not look anything like anyone else, but that is okay. It is simply an exercise and a ritual to highlight what your thoughts are on this topic and what you can do more to bring that into your life. And I think it's a really beautiful thing when we find that balance of femininity and masculinity. I feel like it goes on to impact other people around us, and then it impacts them. So instead of having to feel like, oh, I'm standing up for my femaleness, I want to make this happen, I have to fight patriarchy. We're not fighting them. We are simply in ourselves reestablishing more of a balance, and that goes on to, we model it for others, and that begins to change how they interact with themselves, and so on and so forth. And so in my mind, I think it's a really healthy thing to do for society, even though it's something that you do within yourself. Okay, so that's that. And then let's end with the mental stuff. So now that we've done all the introspection of the previous phase, this is going to be all action stuff. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a look at those to-do lists that you created last phase, okay? And you are going to look at the things that you picked to be the most important to you. And so more than likely during this rise phase, you are now, following that to-do list and doing the things on it and taking action, which is amazing. What the journaling exercise I'm going to give to you though, for this phase though, is the journaling on the question of who is the version of me that already does all of these things that I want? What do they look like? Like, I think for all of us, we aspire to be the kind of person we aspire to be, but there's a disconnect between where we see ourselves now and where we will see ourselves in the future. So it's always, oh, when I finish that extra schooling, when the kids grow up, when this and this. And what we want to do, and it gives us much more or it empowers us when we can flip that and say, how can I be that person now? So who is this person that allows herself to be nurtured? Who is this person that exercises 4 times a week? Who is this person? And you begin to pretend and put yourself in those shoes already. And part of that may be, your internal experience, like you just decide, yes, I am the kind of person that exercises 3 times a week. What do people that exercise regularly have? They have gym clothes that they like. They have gym shoes that they like. They put their gym clothes out the night before so that when they wake up in the morning, they don't have to think about it. They have friends who also exercise, so they have their friend waiting for them at the gym in the morning so that they have an accountability partner to get up. When you think of things that way from that perspective, it does something really powerful. On one hand, you say it gives you more kind of like weight behind the actions that you choose to take, because it is who you're trying to be. And then it also allows you to be in the driver's seat and empowered to identify new areas of direction. And all you need to get started living in a way that you like is just doing the next step that needs to happen. You don't have to have the entire thing planned out. You just need to see one step ahead of you. So just like me saying, I'm the kind of person that exercises 3 times a week. Well, from that, you kind of can figure out the other next steps. Like, what does that look like? And what do you actually need to make that happen? And then it shows you what those things are and you do them. And then once you start doing those, all of a sudden you get a whole new layer of things like, well, now I'm working out 3 times a week, but I really love lifting weights. Oh, well, I'm going to join a gym that has weightlifting group classes so that I can get better, but also have fun and get to know other people who do it. You see how that works? It just ends up, instead of always saying, I wish I was that person, I wish I was that person. And what I wish ends up causing is that you just wish the whole time and you don't actually make it happen. And what I want you to do is put yourself in those shoes and say, what would I do from here if I had already made it here? And from there, that's what you're going to journal about. You're going to identify some steps, and then I know you're going to get excited because I've done this before. You're going to get so excited because you're like, I was struggling and stuck here with this for so long, and now I just in 10 minutes realize that I have a list about 5 things I can do right now to make this more of a reality in my life. And you're going to get so excited, and you're going to take all of that rise phase energy and you're just going to do it. You're going to get it done. And so I'm already so proud of you. I'm so happy that you're listening to this and starting to live this way, because it just is so transformational once you start doing it, that your life is going to change. Like in 2 cycles, 3 cycles from now, you're going to not even recognize yourself or your life, because that's how powerful this stuff can be. All right, on that note, we're going to wrap it up for today. Join me next time. We'll talk about the next phase, and lots of good stuff in that one as well. So have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for stopping by this Podclass. If you are ready to dig deeper into your health, really understand your cycle, stop guessing with random supplements, and start testing, our Healthy Hormones group starts September 27th. You can find more details at zestyginger.com www.podclass.com/healthy hormones and find out if this is the place for you. And as always, we offer free 20-minute consultations, so jump on the phone with us and we'll help you decide if it's a good fit.